In this short series, we will look at some of the ways Android players can customize and improve the motor accessibility of games. This can be done by adjusting in-game options or by using an alternative controller such as the Xbox Adaptive Controller. In this video, we'll be looking at some of the optional features and settings found in some Android games, which may improve the motor accessibility for players. The aim is to demonstrate some of the available options to players in these specific games, but also as examples of what to look out for when playing a new game. We also aim to show developers these features so that they may consider whether similar features may be appropriate for their own games. If you're a game developer who is interested in adding motor accessibility features to your game or a future project, Special Effect have created the Special Effect Dev Kit. Over 7 main topics, the Dev Kit covers many of the motor accessibility options we look for when assessing how accessible a game might be to some players. The topics fall into one of two categories: input, which focuses on how players interact with a game through the input devices that they use, and gameplay, which looks at the ways of altering the gameplay to allow players to play at a level of challenge that suits them with their current setup. Please visit the Special Effect Dev Kit website to get started at specialeffectdevkit.info. Brawlhalla is a platform fighting game that allows you to play using a controller as an alternative to touch. You can remap buttons if using a controller, and you can also choose to disable the controller, which can be useful for players, for instance, if using a controller to emulate touch on a device rather than use it as a controller. It also features the option to move the touchscreen controls, as well as resize them to create a customized layout to suit players using the touchscreen, and place them where they are most comfortable accessing them. It also has a press up to jump option, which removes the need for the jump action as a separate button input. So if accessing the left stick or D-pad are preferred for players using a controller, they can use the up direction on these instead. Players can test these settings and practice the controls in a pressure-free testing area. For developers, the following modules on the Special Effect Dev Kit have more examples of these types of features. 1.2 supporting multiple input devices, 2.2 remapping, 1.4 blocking input devices, 6.5 analog action assists, and 5.6 testing configurations. Dead Cells is a roguelike Metroidvania where you can make your way through procedurally generated levels by defeating enemies and collecting power-ups and weapons along the way. Controllers that are compatible on Android are supported, and you can remap the button and trigger inputs. You can also alter the left stick dead zone. By allowing players to adjust this area, players can choose the amount of input required on the left stick to initiate an action. Increasing the dead zone can be useful for players trying to avoid unintentionally performing an action. Decreasing the inner dead zone can be useful for players who would prefer to initiate an action with less input from the device, and therefore less physical movement overall. You can also choose a controls tutorial, which shows control tips at the start of the game, which can help players become familiar with the inputs that are required sooner if their controls need to be tailored to the game. For developers, the following modules on the Special Effect Dev Kit have more examples of these types of features: 2.2 remapping, 4.2 inner dead zones, and 5.2 action information. Apex Legends Mobile is a battle royale shooter game. At startup, you are asked to choose a configuration which can later be changed in the settings menu. One of these options is that auto-firing will be enabled. This means that when you aim at the enemy, you will shoot automatically. It also contains a range of sensitivity options. And it also has an aim down sights tap option, so the input does not have to be held. It also has a customizable layout for on-screen joysticks and buttons. For developers, the following modules within the Special Effect Dev Kit have more examples of these types of features. 7.3 Automatic Digital Actions and 4.5 Action Values. Call of Duty Mobile is a first and third person shooter. The game provides controller support within a match to give alternative access to the game using controllers supported on Android devices, such as a standard Xbox controller or an Xbox Adaptive Controller. Touch input is still required for many of the menus. The game includes a simple mode, which, like Apex Legends Mobile, auto-fires when aiming at an enemy, which reduces the need for an additional input for shoot. It also includes sensitivity options for different contexts, and a toggle option for aiming down sights, which removes the need to continuously hold this input. Call of Duty Mobile also includes an auto sprint option, which will allow you to continue sprinting without holding an input until you cancel it for both touchscreen players and players using a controller. Like some other games mentioned, it also includes movable and scalable on-screen inputs. For developers, the following modules on the Special Effect Dev Kit have more examples of these types of features. 1.2 Supporting multiple input devices, 7.3 Automatic Digital Actions, 4.5 Action Values, 3.3 Continuous Holds, and 6.5 Analog Action Assists. Minecraft can be played using a connected controller or touchscreen controls. You can choose to use auto jump, which reduces the need to press an input for it manually when you approach an obstacle. Again, you can remap the buttons and trigger inputs to actions of your choice if using a controller. You can also choose alternative touchscreen control schemes, such as split controls or lefty mode for left-handed gameplay. You can adjust the sensitivity of camera controls. You also have the option to choose difficulty and play in creative mode for a less competitive style of play. Within the Special Effect Dev Kit, developers can find further examples of these features. 1.2 Supporting multiple input devices, 7.3 Automatic Digital Actions, 2.2 Remapping, 4.5 Action Values, and 6.3 Game Difficulty. The racing game Asphalt 9 Legends has a steering mode called Touch Drive that allows the player to tap on screen icons to indicate which route you'd like to choose, rather than manually steering the vehicles by swiping, tilting, or moving a joystick. When you approach a turn, for instance, the game will give you a window to choose one of the on-screen options for which direction to take. When using manual controls, it also allows players to adjust the steering sensitivity, whichever input they are using. You can choose from swiping on screen, tilting the device, or using a connected controller to steer. For developers, the following modules within the Special Effect Dev Kit have more examples of these types of features. 7.4 Automatic Analog Actions, 4.5 Action Values, and 4.7 Input Methods. In PUBG Mobile, a battle royale game, players have the option to adjust the type of event that performs the action when firing shotguns and crossbows. They can choose to fire when the on-screen input is released or when it is pressed, allowing players to adjust what method works best for them and their use of inputs and timing. More examples of 3.2 configuring interactions, which may be useful for developers, can be found on the Special Effect Dev Kit. This is just a small range of games available on Android which have options that may make them more accessible to some players. When playing a new game, it can be worth taking a look at the Settings or Options menu to see what features can be adjusted to customize the game. Please be aware certain games shown may cost money to buy, have in-app purchases, or have age restrictions.